everybody. Welcome to France Today Live. I am Sylvia Davis, culture editor for France Media, and your host today to discover Nice with local travel writer Jeanne Oliver. We're very excited to announce that you can already order the beautiful collection of greeting cards to send a little bit of France to your friends and family for any occasion, as well as the 2023 calendar. And those are available at francemedia.shop, francemedia.shop. Take a look because they're lovely. So I'll now invite Jeanne to start her video. Hello, Jeanne.
Hi, Sylvia.
Thanks for,
hello, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
And
how's
hello from Nice.
How is the Côte d'Azur today?
Oh, well, you know, it's a little overcast, and that's good because we've been having quite a lot of sun and quite a lot of heat.
It's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit nice little break. So let me introduce you. Jeanne Oliver is a seasoned travel writer who has been living in France since 1992 and on the Côte d'Azur since 1999. She has written numerous guidebooks to France and other European countries for Lonely Planet, Inside, and Fromers. Jeanne is the author of Nice Uncovered, walks through the secret heart of a historic city, and runs the travel planning site FrenchRivieraTraveler.com. And it's a thrill to chat with you today, Jeanne, and personally making notes for my next trip to Nice. So over to you.
Good. Thank you. Hello from Nice, everyone. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Miss Sylvia. I am happy to be here and share what I've learned about Nice in the over 2 decades that I've been here. So I think I've picked up a few things. I love researching the culture, the history, the little stories and legends about Nice. And I've shared a lot of it in my book, Nice Uncovered, which covers 7 great walking tours through Nice, and it's a step-by-step guide. But today we'll focus on the Old Town, which is maybe my favorite neighborhood in Nice, maybe a lot of people's favorite neighborhood in Nice. It's the most historic part of Nice. It's the oldest part of Nice, that's for sure, the oldest settled part of Nice. The red-roofed tops, the narrow streets, the pastel houses. What's not to love about the Old Town? It's crammed with bars and restaurants and cafes and markets. Those of us who live here find ourselves going pretty often to the Old Town for one reason or another. It's a pretty great place, and it's a great place to explore because it's pedestrian only. So that makes it easy and casual to walk around. The Old Town, I think, is maybe the most convivial and most least pretentious part of Nice. Not like the rest of it is, but the Old Town is particularly human-sized and casual. So we'll be looking at that primarily today. And then at the end, I'll touch on some of the newer neighborhoods in Nice, which are also great to explore. So where is Nice? Well, it's very important because we are only 39 kilometers from the Italian border. The nearest border town is Ventimiglia, right beyond Mentone. So we have really quite a strong Italian influence. Those of us who live here really love to pop over across the border for a little dose of Italy. It's one of the reasons why I chose Nice, actually, is you get a little bit of Italian flavor as well as the French flavor. Italians often come here a lot as well, particularly in the summer. They vacation here. They love our food because our food is derived in many ways from Italian food. Our famous dish Soca, chickpea pancake, is derived from an Italian dish. We have great pizzas and pastas. And so the Italian influence is something you can really feel in Italy. So it's not just because we live close to Italy that we have an Italian influence. Nice was part of Italy really for almost 5 centuries. Italy wasn't really a unified country during that time. It was a series of provinces, and Nice was part of the Savoy region. So from 1388 to 1860, Nice was governed by the Savoy dukes. So as you can see on this map, the Savoy region was really pretty extensive, going up to Switzerland and right down to Nice. Nice was important to them because it was their outlet to the sea. See, they're really, if you look at the map, they're really pretty land bound. So Nice was really important town to them. So Nice was part of the Savoy region until 1860 when it voted to become part of France. We still honor some Italian heroes, Giuseppe Garibaldi, for example, who was born in Nice and went on to unify Italy. He's a big hero in Italy and elsewhere, as a matter of fact. Here's his statue presiding over the Plaza Garibaldi. In a little bit outside of the old town. So we do appreciate our links to Italy is really very important. So for most of the Savoy rule for those 5 centuries, Nice was really kind of small. It was confined to Castle Hill, which you see on the right, the big hill, and Vieux Nice or Old Nice, which you can see on the left. The rest of it was really farmland. So the earliest settlement actually was on Castle Hill. So that's a settlement that stretches way back to the Greeks, back to antiquity. And then in the medieval period, it developed walls. There's a walled hill village. If you were living in medieval times, it was pretty good to live on top of a hill, as a matter of fact, because you were felt safe from pirates, and then plus you had these nice walls around you, so people felt pretty safe. It turned out they weren't that safe, but we'll get to that later, but they felt good. So this was the oldest part of Nice, and then it wasn't really until later that the old town started getting settled, and the first part of the old town that was settled was really right under Castle Hill. So you see to the right there, right under Castle Hill, was really the first part of Nice to get settled. And so Nice has some links still to Castle Hill. As you can see, this is Rue Rossetti, which is in that part of Old Town of Nice, and Castle Hill is in the background. So the first part to get settled was the Place Saint-Francois. It's now the Place Saint-Francois, but way back in the 13th century, the end of the 13th century, Franciscan monks established a monastery here. So they were the first really to come down from the hill and put up their monastery. The monastery is in the center of this picture with the clock tower sticking up out of it. And when they settled there, then other people started forming a little community around the monks, had to have walls. That was a walled community too. It was still really quite tiny. This Franciscan monastery has been restored and rehabilitated many, many times over the centuries, had a lot of permutations, but most recently it was an extensive restoration, and it now houses the theater of Nice, which has just recently moved there this year. This is big news. Now it dominates Place Saint-Francois, which is also known for its fish market. We like to go down there for fish, and Place Saint-Francois is one of the many nice squares to hang out on here in Nice. So, as I say, Nice was tiny and confined to this little part of the old town. We're going to be looking at that first before we get to what I would consider the new part of the old town. So this is the oldest part, right around the Franciscan monastery, which is indicated by a red flag here. And you can see that is close to this green strip here, now the Promenade de Payon, very beautiful park, but it was once a river. So the Franciscan monks did a very clever thing. They parked themselves right next to a river, very important for water and so forth. And it was good for the settlers that settled around there. So all was going well until 1543. So this was a very important date in Nice's history because on that date, there was a terrible attack by a Turkish fleet. Remember, I said people felt safe on top of their hill. Well, they weren't all that safe, as it turns out. So the Turkish fleet launched a lot of cannonballs. The whole Castle Hill was under attack, and its situation looked very dire. And who saved the day? A washerwoman. Catherine Segarain was her name. So according to legend, who knows, could be true. According to legend, Catherine Segarain, the washerwoman, she leapt on top of the city walls. She turned her back to the Turkish fleet just offshore. She lifted her skirts and she wiped her bottom with a Turkish flag, according to legend. So the story goes, the Turks were so repulsed and appalled by this behavior that they turned tail, so to speak, and left. And so now Catherine Segarain is a big heroine. She kind of symbolizes the very defiant and unpretentious spirit of Nice. And there is a monument to her on the wall in Old Nice where she allegedly committed her defiant deed. Well, I think it may have happened. It's possible. So in any event, after the siege, the Turks said, well, that's enough with Castle Hill. We're turning the whole hill into a citadel just for military use. Everybody moved down to Old Nice. So that was really a big change. And that was really the beginning of the settlement of Old Nice. 16th century, people packed up, went down to Old Nice, built their houses and their churches and commerces and so forth. And that was, you're not going to see anything in Old Nice besides maybe the Franciscan monastery foundations that's really older than that, because that's really when it got settled. So one of the pleasures of walking through this very old part of town is kind of seeing how medieval people lived, medieval Niçois in any event. They were quite ingenious. So in this picture, you see a feature of the old town that you're not going to really see elsewhere. Notice you have a lintel here and then wrought iron above the lintel. Well, that was an early air conditioning system. The old Niçois at that time knew they were living in a hot place. Maybe not as hot as this past summer, but still, which was quite hot, but still quite hot there. So they came up with a system of drawing the air in through the streets at night, nice and cool, would enter. The roofs were open. It was an open roof, so air would circulate and keep their houses very cool. It's really an ingenious system. And you'll see that all through this part of the old town, not so much in that, not at all in the newer part of town. This system is still in use in a lot of buildings today. A lot of buildings have been turned into Airbnb, and sometimes there's elevators in the vestibules and people go up to air-conditioned apartments, but some buildings still do use this system. And you'll see on these lintels, they all have inscriptions, usually religious. Let's place it in the hands of God, Jesus, protect the house, and that sort of thing. Some of them seem actually a little mysterious, but this is my favorite inscription. Medieval life was quite varied. So notice here it says interna meliora. It means better inside. So what's better inside? A restaurant, a theater? No, it was a brothel. Internet, better inside. So that's still stands. So you do get really a sense of, I guess, what was important there. People had to wash their clothes. So you see this old tub here. Even you can see in the middle dividing stone there, a place for soap. So it was a public wash tub. And it was also the place where executioners came to wash their hatchets. Yes, they had capital punishment, and it was pretty grisly. You got hacked to death with hatchets, and this is where the executioners came and washed them. It was not all grisly, however, and their lives wasn't all about brothels and executioners. This is one of my favorite panels in the old town. It's called the Adam and Eve panel. It's a sculpted relief of, well, Adam and Eve, but they don't look like they're really in the Garden of Eden because they look kind of perturbed, brandishing gourds at each other. This was really very old. It's very beautifully restored, but this was just shortly after people moved down to the old towns. It dates from 1545. We don't really know what the why who is this about? There's a theory that it may have reflected a quarreling couple that was living in the house at the time. So I love these little samples of the old town that you can get. But Nice was also developing at this time an aristocracy. As I mentioned before, Nice was the Savoy Duke's outlet to the sea. So there was a merchant class that developed. Salt and the fishing trade was very important. Salt came from further west in the air, came to Nice, and then shipped out. Fishing trade also very important. So there was money to be made in Nice. It became prosperous. And so throughout the old town, you'll see palaces, residences, they called them palais, built for aristocratic members of the family. This is Palais Lascaris, which you can visit. It is now a museum of musical instruments, and the rooms have been beautifully restored in the Genoese Baroque style that was really everywhere, the trendy style in the 17th century. So there are a number of Baroque palaces. Baroque was strange. It was kind of, it was like an arms race at the time among interior decorators. How much ornamentation can you cram into a square meter? So everything is pretty well decorated, which you can see here in the Palais Lascaris. The Nice Cathedral here is also in a Baroque style. The Nice Cathedral is dedicated to Saint Reparata, who was supposedly a martyred Palestinian that was put out to sea by the Romans, and her boat drifted into Nice Bay, accompanied by angels. It was found by fishermen, and supposedly that's how Nice's Bay, the Bay des Anges, Bay of Angels, got its name. It was through Saint Reparata. So this, the cathedral, she's a patron saint of Nice, and this cathedral is really the center of Nice's religious and spiritual life. It was well decorated on the inside. The wealthy families love to pour their money into fabulous altars. This one is on Saint Reparata. So yeah, so if it's a marriage or a funeral, any important event is going to take place in the cathedral. This is where the commemoration ceremony is held each year on July 14th to commemorate the victims of the terrorist attack on Nice in 2016. So this is recalled here. It's always open and it's worth going in. It's right on vibrant Place Rossetti. Great place to hang out, super popular cafes and Also, the famous Finocchio ice cream stand, which is on the right. So everybody comes here for their unusual ice cream, tomato and basil and lavender and whatnot. It's extremely good and well done. So Place Rossetti is sure an essential stop for what you're going to want to see. Another great Baroque church actually is the Église de Jésus, which I have to mention because it is really considered one of the finest examples of the Baroque style in Nice and maybe even in France. It's quite extraordinary on the inside. As you can see, it certainly is overkill is underkill, more is more. Why have 150 angels on a frieze when you can have 160, which is what they put on this frieze, but it's very beautifully done. And so I recommend stopping in there. It's also open very long hours and is really quite a thing to see. Now we're going to go to another highlight. You can't miss it in these beautiful Cours Soleil. You can see with the red flag there, the Cours Soleil. It's where everybody goes to do their shopping. Yes, locals and visitors alike will come to the Cours Soleil for shopping. Probably we're not going to go to get lavender soap, but we definitely are going to go to get local produce, which is sold there in stands. Kind of reminds you that Nice was the center of an agricultural region at one point. So it has great fruits and vegetables from the Var Valley or up in Saint-Genès. So it's very much still a popular shopping place. And there are some other great highlights on the Cours Soleil. This church on the left, the yellow church, is Miséricorde. That's another very beautiful Baroque church. However, to be honest, it's very rarely open. If it ever is and you're there, stop in, but it's not open all that much. Notice on the right, we have these little low gray buildings. Well, they don't look like much, but they turned out to be kind of important in Nice's development. And actually, they started out as walls. Again, you had to have walls. When people moved down here, you need new walls. And then they became warehouses for fishermen. And then the tops of these low buildings were turned into, in the 18th century, a garden promenade. And all of the best Niçois would come down here and take a nice healthy walk on this promenade, which overlooked the sea. So Cours Soleil has a number of historical features. The most striking monument here is the Duke's residence. It's called the Palais de Roi de Sardaigne, Palace of the Kings of Sardinia, because the Dukes of Savoy, in one of these complicated and interminable European wars that went on for centuries, wound up being the Kings of Sardinia at a certain point. So it's called the Palace of the Roi de Sardaigne. It's now the Palace of Prefecture, and it still is open for state visits, unfortunately, but not too much else, not so much for the public sometimes, but it's a great monument to take a look at. And the other thing to see on Cours Soleil is Matisse House. So why is it called Matisse House? Well, the painter Matisse came here in 1921 and stayed until 1937. So first he lived on the third floor, then he moved up to the fourth floor with that beautiful wraparound view of the Cours Soleil and the sea. So it's called Matisse House. Actually, it's one of the oldest houses in Nice. It was built for an aristocratic family in the 16th century and then became a school. There is still an art gallery down below, but they're not selling any Matisse works, unfortunately, but it's nice to stop in and admire the building. So I'm talking a lot about walls. Where are the walls? Well, there aren't any anymore. There's no walls on Castle Hill. There's no walls around Nice, a few remnants here and there. Why? Because These walls were destroyed in 1705 by Louis XIV, King of France. He came down here. He was always battling the Savoy, which was powerful. Well, he was more powerful, and he had a big army. So we decided to finish off their military position here once and for all. So we blew up all of the walls. That was the end of it. It was not the end of Savoy, the Savoy rule, and certainly wasn't the end of Nice. They figured out what to do. So when the walls came down, actually, it opened up a whole new area of land for development. So now we get to the newer part of town, which you see I've circled in red here. This had been all marshland outside of the walls. When the walls came down, the real estate developer said, okay, let's see what we can do here. Let's build some streets. So when you go through this part of town, you'll see it actually looks quite a bit different from Old Nice, from the older part of town. You're not going to see the lintels. You're going to see the houses that are going to look quite a bit more, more solid, more stately. Streets are more of in a grid pattern, not so much narrow, winding streets. So the first street that they developed was Rue Saint-François-de-Paul. It's actually an extension of the Cours Soleil. So if you go to the Cours Soleil, just keep walking. You'll get onto the Rue Saint-François-de-Paul. You can't miss it. This is where the opera is, a very stately building, and there's also a very good church here. It's quite busy, but it is also pedestrian and nice to stroll. So this was considered back in the 18th century. Then the rich people said, okay, we're done with these narrow streets. It's too crowded. Maybe it's not even that healthy. Who knows? So they decided to build palaces really only in this new area. And some of them are really quite nice. Here is my favorite. It's called the Palais Hongrois. This is built towards the end of the 18th century. And as you can see, it's quite stunning on the inside. It's really quite beautiful. It's a historical monument. Napoleon Bonaparte had stayed here for a week. Now it is mostly Airbnb places, but I would say if you're strolling by and it happens to be open, maybe step in and take a look. It's number 2, Rue Saint-François-de-Paul. And that goes for any of your strolls in throughout the old town, especially on weekday mornings. Sometimes these buildings are open. There's workmen doing work on the inside. I advise taking a peek because there are some really nice interiors with this very beautiful Baroque style. Really, pictures can't do it justice. It's quite incredible. Then also on the street is the Church of St. Paul, which is now used. It's a very nice acoustics, kind of resembles Savoy architecture. If you've been to Savoy to tour and all, you'll see that this church has kind of that style. That's nice to look at. And then there's the opera. That was built towards the end of the 19th century, very ornate on the inside. It replaced an older opera that burnt to the ground, incinerating 200 people. It was during a production of Lucia de Lammermoor, if you're interested. That was the opera that was being sung, terrible fire. And so then they built this right away. And by that time, the end of the 19th century, people were saying, yeah, but this place is not really that trendy anymore. People are starting to move across the river, but tradition won, and they put the opera house there. So do take a look if you possibly can. Another great square that opened up after the walls came tumbling down was the Place du Palais de Justice, as you'll see here with the red flag. And it's really a vast square. Can't miss it. The clock tower on the left, the courthouse, that is the Palais de Justice on the right. There's a nice cafe there, good for people watching, especially if the people you like to watch are lawyers running around in black robes, because that's who's going up and down these stairs. It's very much in use. that's for sure. And inside that cafe, Cafe du Palais, take a look on the inside. That was also from the 18th century. It's been gussied up a little bit on the inside, but there are still some original features. So I would say take a look at that. So as I had said, by the end of the 19th century, people were not that interested in the old town. Why? Well, the English came. The English started moving, trickling down to Nice at the end of the 18th century. It was a great age of respiratory diseases, the TB. So they came down thinking, nice healthy air there. Let's go down to Nice. They came, they saw, they liked it a lot. And so throughout the beginning of, all throughout the 19th century, actually, the English were coming, and they were followed by other aristocrats. Really became the trendy place to be. So, but they didn't want to stay in the old town. Oh no, that did not seem like a healthy thing at all to them. So where I have circled here on the left, that was where the English tended to settle. They rented houses from locals, actually. It was like an early Airbnb, I guess. So they stayed there, but they had a problem because they came for their health. They liked to walk, but the only place to walk was, remember I said on Cours Soleil, those low buildings, Les Ponchettes, that turned into a garden promenade. Well, that was the only place for them to walk. It's indicated by a red flag here, but how to get there, because remember this whole green area was a river. So they had to go all the way up to, you see where the blue flag was, cross the river, there was a bridge there, make their way down through the old town to get to the healthy promenade. They didn't like this at all. This was really not satisfactory one little bit. The old town, it didn't seem very healthy. People were very poor, which bothered their sensibilities. They were distressed by that, harassed by beggars. So they got up a collection at their church, Anglican church, and they decided to build their own promenade. So you'll see that is on the lower left. I've indicated with the red arrow. That was the first. They employed locals. They liked that. This was a good thing, giving jobs to the locals, and they had a nice place to walk. And that was the beginning of the famous Promenade des Anglais. So initially it looked kind of like this, just a dusty promenade, and then it became extended, obviously, and now it runs all the way to the airport. There's cars and whatnot. So that is why it was called the Promenade des Anglais, and that's how it got started. So by then, the old town, now Nice was like really popular with foreigners, and Nice knew this. Their Nice governors are very clever. They said tourism, this could be a very good thing. Let's develop this. Let's get into this more. So they did. They covered over that river, and then that opened all new neighborhoods for Nice to develop here. As you see, you have the old town, and then you have Cimiez up in the north. Once that river was covered over, then everybody started building. Cimiez, the Quartier des Musiciens, you'll see that here all along the promenade and over to West Nice. There's a lot of land, and they had foreigners willing to buy it and build on it. So let's go. And that's why really Nice was named a World Heritage Site last year, because UNESCO said that Nice had really kind of pioneered this idea of a resort town by the sea. And so because a lot of it was developed during really the heyday of architecture, you had all the best architects coming to put their stamp on these new neighborhoods. And you'll see when you get out of the old town, explore these new neighborhoods, you can just see some fabulous things. This Villa Messina, for example, now a museum, that's on the Promenade des Anglais, which had like a whole row of fabulous villas to see. And I certainly advise seeing that. And up in Cimiez, Cimiez was developed. Remember, that's up in North Nice here. That became really important when Queen Victoria came at the end of the 19th century and took her winters here, 1895. That made that a fabulous neighborhood. Everybody wanted to go there. Hotels said, let's build in Cimier. And so there's great hotels there. This one, Hotel Alhambra, is one of my favorites, Moorish style that they built. But there's, that's on the boulevard to Cimier. There's really a lot else to see. This is over in West Nice. This was really way out of the country at the time, in the mid-19th century, when this was built. The Villa Les Pommiers for a French banker, and then sold to an Englishman, and that is quite gorgeous. And you can visit that garden in West Nice. And then the Quartier du Musicien, which has, they refinished them with Baroque and Belle Epoque. Everything is about Art Deco. And the Quartier du Musicien is just the best neighborhood, really, to appreciate the new Art Deco style. It's one of my favorite buildings, La Rotonde, by the French-Russian architect George Dikonsky, who did really a lot of work here. So I do advise, Old Town is the nucleus of town, but get out and see some of these wonderful new neighborhoods. And so in my book, I'll take you through Quartier des Musiciens, Cimier, Promenade des Anglais, West Nice, and more.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jeannie. So here you have where you can find Jeannie's work, niceuncovered.com for her guide, and of course on social media. I think that was wonderful. Of course, Jeannie, there's so much more to Nice and the Côte d'Azur, so you'll have to come back.
Yes.
Tell us more. That was fantastic. And there's so much, it makes so much sense to visit a place like Nice when you know a little bit of the history and why you're seeing that the architecture is different in a certain area. Even the streets look different. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
you're welcome.
So we'll get started with the questions. And I have a question in general. I know it's difficult to say, but in general, what do you think, what would you say is the best time of year to visit Nice, if you can choose?
I think May, June, September, and October, because the weather tends to be a bit milder. July is nice for music festivals. We have the Great Nice Jazz Festival in July, and there's a lot of festivals in the region. So July is definitely happening for that. But yes, it definitely is more crowded. I think May, June, September, October are kind of milder months, and there's still a lot going on. The winter is nice. We have a nice Christmas market in Nice, and the Carnival also on Fat Tuesday in February is a great thing to see. So there's always really something going on in Nice, really all year, I think. But I think, I mean, May and June, if you want to go to the beach, you have May and June, and May through probably May through like mid-October is beach weather. But there's, you know, cultural.
When is peak time, when it gets the busiest?
Oh, that would be July and August.
July and August.
Yeah,
Okay.
beginning of July till the middle of August. That would be the busiest.
And actually, we have, I think you partly answered one, Carrie's question. What is Nice like in the winter as far as weather?
You know, it's so hard to say these days, you know. I mean, I've been here a long time. Usually I'm ready for, you know, storms and rain in the winter. Last winter it didn't rain a drop, and we're kind of in the middle of a big drought here. So I would say winter generally is not beach weather. Although it can happen, there are people on the beach. We have what's called the Bain de Noël or Christmas bath right around December. It's like a little festival in the old town, and a lot of locals come down in red bathing suits and Santa Claus hats, and they'll take a dip, and it's quite festive. It's fun to see. For me, it's a little bit chilly. I like the beach, but for me, December is a little chilly.
It gets the circulation going.
Yes, right.
So Kay asks, can you still see the Russian influence from immigration to Nice?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, you can. There is, of course, a Russian cathedral in not too far away from center of Nice, a little bit to the north. There's also a smaller Russian church in the town center. There's also a great cemetery called Cocade in West Nice that has a number of tombs from various important Russians, actually, as well as British. There's a British section too. There's also in the Quartier des Musiciens, I talk about the Hotel Oasis, which is where Chekhov stayed and Lenin stayed, and that's remained pretty much the same. There's also actually a lot of Russian stores. Until this year, we had quite a good amount of Russian visitors. So there are stores where you can get Russian products. Now they tend to call themselves Ukrainian stores, but stores that sell vodka and smoked fish and things that Russians like.
And Kay also asks, I've read the trilogy Baie des Anges de Max Gallo. Do you have any other authors or books to suggest reading?
It's a fun book is the Scotsman Smollett. He wrote a book. He came through Nice, Tobias Smollett. He came through Nice in the mid 18th century, and he wrote, he had very detailed observations on it. And his book actually became a bestseller in Britain. And it was part of what encouraged a lot of the Brits and Scots to come down here, because it was a really good window into life at the time, and it was really quite agricultural. And there were a lot of books I mentioned in my bibliography that I drew on that will tell various stories and tales on these. But frankly, there's not that many books in English really devoted to Nice. Some, but not that ready, not that many.
Well, that's a great recommendation. Smollett is always
yeah.
fun. So Ryan asks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me.
Yeah.
I just want to add. Yeah, for people who are interested in the World War II, that there's an excellent book called Riviera at War, which George, I think Dunford is his name, is a very detailed picture of that.
Riviera at War?
Yes, for World War II.
Is George Kundal?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Kundahl. So we have lots of questions, Jeanne.
Oh, okay.
Making you work.
Okay.
Lainey asks, Jeanne, tell us what your favorite anecdote is about famous musicians who spent time in Nice.
That's a great question, and I have an answer for that question. Here's my best anecdote. It involves the composer Berlioz. 19th century, Nice was very, very big with composers, musicians. Berlioz came from Paris. He had a falling out, and he was on his way to actually murder his fiancée. actual murder. He had a plan. In fact, he had a gun. In fact, he had two guns in case the first gun misfired. That was, he was really pretty mad. And he got to Nice and he stayed on a hotel on Castle Hill, which is no longer there. It was a big hotel at the time, and he was so enchanted with Nice, he forgot about the whole murder plan. So it saved her life. She went on to marry another guy, and he got busy writing got back to writing music. So,
it had a soothing effect on
yes,
Borealis.
that's right.
Thank you for your question, Lindy. That was fantastic. Let me see. Ryan asks, where do folks living in Nice typically go on holiday? Italy or Paris?
Well, everybody's different. I think Italy is really popular because we do have so many links to Italy, and it's so easy to get to, and you can get to a lot of places by train or driving if so inclined. A lot of people from Nice actually came from Paris, so they'll go back there. And Nice has quite a contingent of retirees also, so they may go to wherever their children are. So I'm not sure that there's one particular place. Nice is very sporty. It's very sporty, and so a lot of people are going to head to mountains wherever they are and do mountainy things, hikes, and so forth.
And maybe get away from the
coast, sure.
Intense heat. Yeah. And a few practical questions. Going back to the best time of the year to visit, is May warm enough for the beach?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the Caribbean, but it's, I think, more than warm enough for swimming. Yeah, by May, it's usually 21, 22 degrees.
Oh, okay. So Linda asked this because she's planning a visit in May, but so that it may be chilly, but it's probably warm enough for the beach.
Yes.
And another practical question is, what's the distance from the train station to Castle Hill? And Alice says she is enjoying this talk a lot.
Oh, well, thank you, Alice. The train station to
Castle Hill, because her hotel is located in Castle Hill. So,
oh, really? Oh, okay. If you're going to walk there with luggage, then it's probably going to be a little too far. It's a few kilometers. You know, maybe 3 or 4 kilometers with luggage. That might be a little bit too much. But you know, to walk for pleasure, sure, that can be done. Nice walk.
And another practical tip from Ryan asks, do you advise visitors to park way out of town, or can we drive in nearer to the center and park?
I advise visitors to it's probably best to not think of driving too much in Nice. You can park out of town, not out of town, I would say a little bit around the edges. There's a plan called Parc Azur where you can leave your car there, and if you take the tramway, present a tram ticket, then you get a very cheap rate. So they're really trying to discourage people from doing that much driving or parking in the town center.
Right, to ease a little bit the congestion. And the trams are great. It's a great service.
Great. Trams are great, very frequent.
And Susan asks, can you suggest any day trips from Nice?
Yes, there's a lot of great day trips from Nice. If you haven't been here before, you'll probably want to take a look at Monaco. It's really an unusual, they're not building any more of them. It's like a fairy tale land, very easy to do either by train or bus. Saint-Paul-de-Vence is another popular day trip. Saint-Paul-de-Vence is a mountain town. It's not too far from Nice, easy to reach by bus or car. It's a hilltop town. with kind of artsy and very beautiful views around the whole region there. There's Antibes, which is right nearby, has the Picasso Museum. There is for beaches, there's Cap Ferrat. Cap Ferrat is very beautiful. Cape has beaches, very beautiful walks around Cap Ferrat. Could take a day trip to Cannes. That's a possibility. So
Mike also says Cagnes-sur-Mer, another place to visit.
Yeah, Cagnes-sur-Mer, especially for the hilltop town. There's a Renoir museum up there. I think that the coastal part of Cagnes-sur-Mer is kind of an extension of Nice, but definitely the hilltop village is quite nice to visit.
Thank you, Mike, for that. And Karen says, I'm planning to visit Nice with family, including my 2-year-old granddaughter in February. Any suggestions what to do with young children?
Well, yes, the park that I spoke about earlier, the Promenade des Paillons, we call it the Coulee Vert, is an extensive park with a really vast play area for kids. It's very imaginative. There's also fountains that kids can run and play in. It's a delightful place to hang out, and especially nice for kids, I would say. I think that would be my my top advice there. There's also a merry-go-round in Jardin Albert Premier. The beaches are maybe a little bit pebbly for kids, but there is one beach, Liutata, that is just devoted for kids. It opens in the summer. It's sandy. It's watched. You have to register, so you can't just turn up. You have to register through the city, but it is a nice, safe way to have kids enjoy the beach.
Perfect. And Susan asks, any fiction books that take place in or around Nice?
Fiction books in and around Nice. Let me see. W. Somerset Maugham spent some time here. He has a wonderful book called a wonderful short story called The Fat Ladies of Antibes, which really is quite funny. And then there are some writers that specialize in it. A book that I liked a lot is written by a Niçois here called Sue Ellen Greeley. It's called The Table by the Window. It's a mystery thriller that takes place here in Nice.
Perfect. And
Patricia Sands also.
Oh, Patricia Sands, yes.
She
does
quite a lot centered here.
And another practical tip will be in Nice, Virginia, will be in Nice in late October. What clothes should we bring? It's what everybody needs to know. Layers.
Yeah, late October. It's probably, I mean, it's not winter yet. You might want to bring something, a little rain gear in case it rains here ever. It might rain then. A light wrap at night. End of October. I mean, I have swum on the beach through October. It really kind of depends. So it could be shirt sleeve weather during the day and maybe a light jacket at night. I think you'd be safest with.
And Eleni adds that there's a recent book called Akin. I don't know if it's Akin or Akin, A-K-I-N. And Colleen says there's also Not Quite Nice by Celia Imrie for fiction.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yes, great tips. So the next question is, Mike also said about the question of where to visit, like day trips from Nice. He says Grasse is always also interesting, and you can make
Yes.
your
Yes, it is.
perfume made for you.
Yes,
So
exactly. Yes.
thanks for the recommendation, Max. See, you see, Jeannie, you have to come back because it's too much to
I know,
cover.
there's so much here. Never get tired of it.
And there's a question about what is an authentic pizza place for Neapolitan pizza in Nice, and to make it more general, any places you would recommend that you'd love for us to eat?
Okay, well, now you're talking my language, pizza.
Pizza. There is a special type of pizza in Nice, isn't it? Well, I call it
Yes.
a type of pizza.
Yes, yeah. My favorite place actually just closed. It was Scuderia. Also, I like La Table de Julien. That's in East Nice on Rue Beaumont. No, Atelier de Julien. Atelier de Julien or Table de Julien in East Nice. Is immensely popular for pizza. Les Amoureux is pretty well known. That's around the port. That's quite good. La Trattoria, Rue de France. I tend to go there quite a bit.
Great tips. Well, food in general is just it's another presentation in itself.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So we're running out of time, but Colleen asks, where's the best place to live just outside of Nice, but that is within walking distance to Old Town?
Well, walking distance to the Old Town, then you really are going to be in Nice. Probably the Quartier des Musiciens is a very, very attractive neighborhood. It was built for foreigners, and foreigners are very demanding at the time. So the buildings are very solid, very comfortable. It's very wide avenues, trees. Really, it's calm. It's really very beautiful, and it's within walking distance of the Old Town.
Oh, sounds lovely. And that's our last, it's not a question, it's a comment from John, who says, great presentation. Jeanne is a great resource for all things Niçois.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad.
It's true. We all agree. So remember, everybody, you can find Jeanne's guide at Nice, www.niceuncovered.com. And please join us for our next France Today live event on Thursday, October 13th, for an insider's guide to Provence with local travel and lifestyle writer Keith Van Sickle, for a delightful look at his favorite spots and lesser known tips to make your next visit to this stunning region even more memorable. And remember, you can order greeting cards and the France calendar from francemedia.shop. That's no www, just directly francemedia.shop. And thank you to each one of you for your wonderful comments and your feedback and your participation. And thank you again, Jeanne.
It was a pleasure.
See you again here, I hope soon.
Yes, hope soon. Okay.
And thanks everyone again. And à bientôt from us at France Media. Bye-bye.